I'm delighted to welcome the wonderful Valli Morphett, Director at Design Jam, to host our next session titled Digital Engagement for Place Visioning.
Hello.
She says, "Together we are stronger" is more than just a tagline. Valli is a placemaking thought leader, webinar guru, and co-design specialist who knows how to mobilize local support base and facilitate outcomes that people trust. With over a decade of experience inside local government, leading placemaking and engagement teams, backed by a decade of leading placemaking and consulting firms, Valli knows how to deliver social impact and economic outcomes on Main Street and activity centres. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm handing the mic over to you.
Hello, welcome everybody to my little sneaky presentation. I'm very grateful to be here today. Thank you for the invitation. Andrew and Cindy, fabulous human beings that you're all really lucky to work with, clearly. So I'm going to talk a bit about sort of tactical. I'm going to give you some inspiration, but then I'm going to talk about place visioning, and I'm going to give you some practical advice for doing this yourself and doing it using digital vehicles. Obviously, this is a conference which is very focused on that. So I want you to get something practical and useful from the session. But I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners on the land on which I am today, which I'm meeting you all from today, which is the Wurundjeri people and the Kulin Nation here in Melbourne. Chilly morning here in Northcote. Who else is from Melbourne? Let me know in chat. Northcote's water pressure, I don't know where it is today, so I had to have a cold shower this morning. So a little bit of a challenging start for this human being. It's not how I like to operate. But Design Jam, we're Melbourne-based placemaking and engagement specialists, and we build social capital and we help places prosper. Now, the reason we exist is up on the screen right now. This is all probably quite clear to you. You work in this space, you work in engagement, you understand what's going on in the world right now, but we're being impacted significantly by the impacts of COVID, by the impacts of social isolation, and by the impacts of rapidly urbanizing environment. And this is why we exist as an organization. And we help places which are broken, places which are empty, and places which look like this. Build it and they will come doesn't work anymore. You're probably well aware of this, and you might even have projects in your own council or metro areas where there's been a lot of money invested in a place and then no one comes and it remains empty. So we turn places like this into places for people. So placemaking is a collaborative process. I want to put it on the table. Those of you who haven't sort of like played in this space before, many of you may have. And if you have been involved in placemaking projects, pop it in chat. Great for everyone to have a bit of an idea of how else you are all working in the placemaking space. But it's a collaborative process which is used for revitalization and for resilience. So a lot of our work right now is around creating more resilient places which have been impacted by COVID. But we play within the space of social, cultural, economic, and environmental benefits. Lots of questions coming through for Anson and Sampha. Good to see. And we create places that people love. Now, placemaking can be delivered in a host of different manners, a bit of a spectrum on the screen right now. So it can be tactical, it can be community projects based, it can be creative and cultural development, it can be economic development focus, or it can be strategic. So when it's cultural and creative, it can look like this: beautiful, colorful murals and art in streets and places. It can look like this: ephemeral activation using creative processes. This in Sydney, isn't this an awesome bit of chalk art, which they did recently? In my spare time, I do pavement chalk art, so I love including a bit of chalk in my presentations. That wasn't me though, that was someone else in Sydney. When it's economic development focused, it looks like this. So we've been very busy in Melbourne, driving sort of the parklet revolution. Suddenly Melbourne's leading the outdoor dining and the parklet revolution in the globe, it seems. So images like this, which is my own Main Street, are everywhere now. And it's almost creating a fiesta or a street party vibe in many of our activity centres, which is helping them survive through the economic impacts that COVID has brought. It looks like this: closing streets and repurposing them temporarily. This project literally provided 1,000 additional outdoor dining spaces for 19 traders in a section of this city precinct, which these traders needed to survive. Or it looks like this when it's community based or when it's tactical. So it looks like pop-up parks. It looks like community intervention. So this was a community-led pop-up park. It looks like community gardens and projects of a variety of nations, or more recently, it looks like this. So this was a tactical urbanism project, which we delivered in Beechworth, where we used pool noodles. Who could imagine pool noodles would be used to slow traffic? We got the data back. It decreased the amount of vehicles speeding in a school zone by 5% just by using pool noodles and doing interventions on fences. Isn't that cool? We just released our project video summarizing the outcomes. Feel free to look up the Design Jam Facebook page and check that one out. Now, I'm not going to show it to you right now because I want to focus on the practical guidance for you all in this space. So place visioning is a really important component of the work we do, and it provides the foundation of strategic work. So what does strategic placemaking look like? Well, it looks like developing place visions. It looks like developing place plans and placemaking strategies to maximize the impact of investment when you're a council and you're developing a place plan, or developing an activation strategy to help our centres survive the impacts of COVID, which I'm doing with quite a lot of councils at the moment. So great places are all founded on a shared vision. Now, I say shared vision, it's not about a marketing consultant coming up with a fancy pants vision and then that vision being rolled out and articulated through master plans, through strategies and the likes. A shared vision is actually founded on collaboration. And if it's not truly shared by everyone involved, key stakeholders, communities and the likes, well, sometimes that vision can actually end up being a hollow promise, which communities get frustrated about when it's not delivered on. I don't know if any of you have worked much in the development space, but hollow promise visions can result in community outrage when developments are handed over to council. Some of you might have discovered that already. But what are the benefits of having a shared vision? Well, it creates alignment, shared alignment on a future pathway, which is really critically important, especially when you're talking about key stakeholders as well as local communities on the ground. It will accelerate community buy-in, stewardship and participation. So more than buy-in or just champions and supporters, it will actually accelerate people's willingness to get hands-on involved in improving those local places themselves and contributing with their own two hands. It will reinforce local identity instead of pretending the local identity doesn't exist and coming up with a new vision, which has nothing to do with the reality on the ground. And a shared vision will also promote investor confidence. So it's great for negotiating with developers, with property owners and the like in attracting investment in suburbs and cities. So what are the tools I use for digital visioning? Interestingly enough, I was running a visioning last week, a digital visioning last week with a revitalisation board headed up by one of the local MPs. And we had the worst thing happen. Zoom, I tend to use Zoom. Zoom, there were problems with the department's Zoom account. So we had to use Teams. Oh my God, never use Teams for visioning. Never use Teams for community engagement. Look, they might be listening. My feedback is avoid it at all costs if you absolutely can. But tools that are great for visioning are tools that support dialogue and tools that support breakout conversations in smaller groups. So I like using Zoom, always with the breakout function, and I like using shared whiteboards. In fact, Jamboard is my favorite shared whiteboard that I use. It's Google's shared whiteboard. 16 people can work on it at once, and I'll set up each breakout group to have its own shared whiteboard. And then I sit back like God when they're having their conversations, and I watch all of their ideas populate on these different shared whiteboards that I have at once. So these are the techniques and I use my digital visioning. Please don't use Teams, but sometimes you're forced to. We use Teams and Zoom. Yeah, good. Looking at your commentary coming in. But I've got a few tips to help you, a few tips and key lessons that which will help you avoid making common mistakes when you embrace digital visioning too, because that's what I want you to do, folks. That's why I'm here talking to you today. So tip number one, and this might apply in many areas, but tip number one, like placemaking, digital engage making, envisioning circumstance is all about relationship building. It's all about building rapport. So you need to take time to build rapport with the people you are taking on this visioning journey with you. You want to be a human. You want to present in a really accessible, engaging way, because as you would well know, in a digital context, attention of your communities has to be earned. You have to earn their attention, and you cannot expect everyone to get on board like this, because you know that their attention is being snapped away by everything in the universe. Text messages, emails, people this, that, ads, advertising. So attention has to be earned, people. How do you do that? How do you earn their attention when you're engaging digitally in something so sensitive? Well, you need to treat the engagement experience differently. So my personal tips: be an MC, don't be a chair. Think of yourself as a ringmaster who brings personality, stories, laughter, real emotion to the table when you're engaging your communities in a face-to-face digital visioning process. So be that MC, be that ringmaster, don't be a chair. Visualize that you're talking to a colleague. Keep your eyes on that camera. Now, this is something which you can practice and get better at, and use humor and storytelling and give snippets of your life and your human experience, and that will bring the experience to life for your participants as well. I talked about the weather. I cracked a joke about the fact that we have no hot water here in Northcote. These are little simple tools that I'm putting in action, which help build a sense of rapport between myself and yourself. Because what you want to be doing is talking through that camera. Now, eye contact is really critical. If I presented my presentation all like this, you would have a very different experience at the other end of the camera. You'd probably start doing this. Oh, replying to that email. So talk to the camera. Now, if you're not used to talking to your camera, one of my ex-students sent me this photo, and it's a fabulous tip to help you do it better. Talk to Carrie Fisher. She literally got a picture of Carrie Fisher, cut it up and stuck it next to the camera on her laptop. Now, if your device is really low or you've got a webcam that's really high, move it. So I have my laptop propped up, so it's at approximately, if I can see everyone going, alter screen, but use every little trick in your toolkit to get better engagement with your audience at the other end of that camera. So for a place vision to be more than marketing spin, it needs to be crafted through collaboration. So this is a space that you all would understand very well and play in as well. But you don't start with a vision. A vision never starts with a vision, or it's just an act of fantasy. A vision always needs to start with research, absolutely critical. So here's our typical placemaking project timeline from woe to go. So essentially we have stages of explore and engage, which always occur before you actually do visioning or you do any sort of strategy work. So you are all experts in this space right now. So the research could include engagement. It could include visitor demographics. It could include place audits on the ground to understand the behavior, the movement, the group sizes of people who are coming to your place. It could include target market analysis. It could include a whole bunch of things, such as examples which were made by Anson and Sanford before, using these amazing engagement tools that you have at your fingertips with the HiVE. So you've done your research, you've set up the appropriate tool to do a visioning, and then you're going to use Zoom or not Teams, a digital engagement video conference workshop experience which supports breakout. I use Zoom because it's really user-friendly, but obviously you don't have to use Zoom. There's a whole bunch of different other engagement tools out there. But my vision workshops look like this. So always you are starting with context. What did the research tell you? What is happening on the ground? What are the challenges that people are experiencing? But I don't tend to present the challenges, which are wicked challenges, which people will be overwhelmed by with no sense of ever being able to do anything about it. I'll really focus on the challenges that can be addressed within the remit of your project or whatever it is that you're delivering, whether it be a strategy, whether it be a master plan, whether it be a whole host of other things. So presenting the research, providing an opportunity for dialogue so that people can have a conversation on what they are experiencing. So people are adding their layer of contributing to an understanding of the context. I like to call those discussions on opportunities. There's no such thing as a problem. There's just an opportunity to adapt, to load, to learn. So every problem can be turned into an opportunity. In fact, disruption does bring a lot of opportunity because it forces adaptation. So I like to have discussions on opportunities. What are the key opportunities that you're experiencing in whatever the neighborhood or the area of question is? So they've understood the context and it's based on reality. They've had a conversation themselves and contributed their own experience to that. Then we'll move into the visioning. So I'm a traditionalist when it comes to visioning. I'll go, okay, everyone, I can't believe that the minister actually went along with this last week. I was like, yes, I get people to get in their chair, do it now. Everyone, get in your chair comfortably, put both feet firmly on the ground, straighten your back, get nice and comfortable and balanced. Now close your eyes and take a deep breath. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Now listen to my voice and visualize with images the words that I'm describing. So it's the year 2025. La, 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 la. Open your eyes, everyone. And I'll literally read a vision script. That's a short paragraph, not a big paragraph, but it'll describe high-level aspirations of the projects, thriving economy, connected communities, the streets are filled with life or greenery, or whatever the focus of your project is. I'll read a visioning script and then I'll invite people to go into breakout and share what they saw. It's really powerful because the visuals and the images people see, they're all unique, but they all contribute to people's future aspirations, shaped through the lens of their own experience and their own lives. So I'll do an individual visioning, get people to talk about it, and then I introduced character avatars. Because if we only focused on people's individual visioning, then only the people in the room get represented, and sort of marginalized groups or people that struggle with accessibility and getting involved in consultations. You know how hard it is to reach people with young children. Gosh, the 65 plus demographic are always overrepresented in the consultations we run. Perhaps people have physical reasons or economic reasons why they can't access your engagement. So we like to think about the broader audience, and we'll set up avatars. So the avatars will generally be based on either target audience or demographics, and it'll be, okay, and the avatars will essentially be 7 or 8 different people. For example, a young person who's in a wheelchair. It'll be people with different mobility and economic situations. There'll be a trader, there'll be a community member or an active volunteer. And then we provide each breakout group with an avatar, and we get people to write simple ideas as to what that ideal vision would look like for that person. So they've visioned themselves and then they visualize this aspirational future as someone else. And we find you get much richer material when people put themselves in someone else's shoes. And then finally, we get people to share what those visions are. And that gives us a rich, powerful bunch of information, which we can easily distill into a vision statement. So here's some of the visioning work we've done recently. So this was a placemaking vision for residential development. Really, really powerful little visioning experience, this one, but we turn it into a colorful document, which can work as a poster, because you want that vision to be shareable. You want it to be snappy. You want it to be, everywhere, so that people really, really connect with it and can see it unfold in front of their eyes. If you do a vision, people never knew what it was, and it gets delivered. Well, how do people know? So this is part of the accountability cycle there. But here's an example of how, we'll use some of our visioning. Or otherwise, if you're a really amazing community group, such as one in Edithvale that we worked with, they turned their place vision into this beautiful, bright, colorful mural, which they put on the wall in their center. How awesome is this? In fact, this is my favorite place vision ever. Relax. You're in Edithvale. How good is that? You could pay a marketing consultant $100,000 and they wouldn't come up with something as good as that. This is a sleepy seaside suburb on the coast in the outer suburb of Melbourne. And this was their vision. Really snappy, but really talks to the aspirational experience that they want to hang on to in their identity in Edithvale. So before I go to questions, and I know I've been zipping through this very quickly, but before I go to questions, if you're interested in placemaking, there are a bunch of networks that you can get involved with and join the conversation. Place Jam, Facebook group, or face-to-face meetups. Just Google Place Jam in Facebook and you can join this group. Very active, nearly 900 members there. Placemaking X is a global network, or there's Placemaking Asia, or there's Place SA in South Australia. There's a whole host of them, but if you look up Place Jam, all are welcome. We'd love to have you join us. So questions.
Valli, I've got a couple before I open to Andrew. I know that in a lot of different communities, those temporary spaces that have really added to the economic recovery are now under threat in question marks because they were only temporary. What is some of the research, or what are some of the trends that you're seeing about being able to make those temporary spaces more permanent? Have you got any insight there?
So it council by council, it's all different. Making the temporary permanent is going to be something which, well, people in my space are really pushing for. So Victorian government, for example, to make it local, provided funding to councils and to empower councils to invest in parklets and extended outdoor dining and repurposing spaces for outdoor dining use, because look, hospitality has tiny margins, and taking away the amount of people you can serve really impacted their profit margin. So they needed this because of social distancing between tables to survive here in Melbourne. There are some councils which have already started the process of making it permanent. There are many councils who are extending the life. So government was provided with 12 months funding. It was a grant essentially, which they have to acquit as with normal grants. Now, some of these councils have been given an extension, and that's supporting them to keep these parklets in place. Parklets are assets. They need to be maintained. They need to be upgraded. Councils, are they on their asset management register? Well, some of them might be. When they do make it to that register, then council has to provide, funds and processes in place to keep it maintained. Some are, some aren't. That's my question. It's not a simple one, but many of these parklets are supporting, early figures are identifying that every additional outdoor dining chair can provide up to $20 extra profit margin per seat per day. So if you've got an extra 20 or 30 seats, this is dollars which are really needed. So they're adding value, they're bringing streets to life, and also they've been a great example of negotiating an outcome. You don't just put a parklet and expect it to thrive. You need to negotiate with those traders who are going to take responsibility for it, who are going to clear the tables, who are going to look after it. And it's really helped to improve business networks and connections between councils and businesses in achieving these sort of wonderful, dynamic sort of like outdoor dining spaces which Melbourne is filled with now.